Hello everybody, and what's going on? It's me, Shimigami X, and what I have for you today is another Bleach chapter review. Okay, but before we get into this, today's going to be a bit of a special, but let me give you a quick update of what's been going on. Last week, as you know, there was no chapter review from me, and the reason for that was simply because, okay, after I finished my last video, as you know, the tribute to the Elite Ace video, which he duped me on, by the way, but it's cool, it's whatever. Yeah, I kinda went to reach for like my phone and whatnot, just check, messages and whatnot. I had a couple messages going off, and I kinda kicked the third leg of the tripod, so the thing kinda just went, whoo, smash! Yeah, and so the camera kinda broke, so what I had to do is, I was looking at the camera and I was like, damn it, how am I gonna do my reviews? So I went to my cousin's house now, and yeah, try to see if he had a camera that I could use. The camera only took photos. So I just thought, okay, let me take some pictures of it on my phone and post thing up on eBay, see if I can sell it that way. The camera was about 300 odd quid, by the way. Okay, so, within like about 20 minutes of me putting it up, I had a buyer saying he wanted to buy it for 80 quid. Sold, take it. Didn't do false advertisement though, told them it was broken and whatnot. They wanted to buy it the same way. They bought it. That was the 80 quid. Checking on eBay, I found the same camera. Same model and everything. For 100 quid. 100 quid. So, 80 at 20, I had 20. I bought the new camera. The camera arrived this week. So that's why I'm here in front of you today. Shimigami X is back, man. Woo woo! Alright. So, anyways, I know you're here for a Bleach chapter review, so what I'm going to do this week, basically, I'm going to give you two reviews. I'm going to give you last week's chapter and this week's chapter, but I'm going to do things in a different order. I'm going to give you this week's chapter first, so that's Bleach chapter 533, and then after that one, I'm going to give you Bleach chapter 532, the one that I missed last week. So for those of you who just want to see, this week's review and don't care about last week's one, you can just watch this one and you can cut the video when this one ends, because I'll do intermission breaks as well, so, so yeah, start off with 533, go for 532. But anyways, I'm gonna jump out of my gi guy, and I'm gonna see y'all on the other side. Hello everybody, it's me, Shimigami X. What I have for you today is another Bleach chapter review. This Bleach chapter is 533, titled Everything But the Rain, opening 6. Alright. So we're going to get into this straight away. The way the chapter starts out is basically a continuation with the last chapter where Masaki has shot a Quincy arrow and blown off this hollow's head. The hollow called Whitey. Quote unquote. What then happens next is, the hollow begins to self-destruct. Just out of pure craziness. It just happened to self-destruct as it's been defeated. So Ishin is basically like, oh no, and Flash steps, moves very quickly towards Masaki, grabs her, drags her away, but gets injured in the process. So then it's almost like we go back to Everything But the Rain opening part 1, where you can see Ishin laying on the floor and Misaki and Ishin talking, saying that he's injured, and he's like, oh, a Shimigami captain has been, like, it's pitiful that a Shimigami captain is being, helped by, a mere human. But they begin to talk, and then he says like, oh, you know what, thank you for saving me. And then Misaki says, thank you for saving me. And she's like, oh no, you're the one who helped me out. But then she just says to him that, like, you're only wounded, but it's okay, you're only wounded because you shielded me from that blast. So they begin to talk, and then the conversation comes up, and then it happens to go about that, Masaki is a Quincy, as we already knew, but it's just explaining the conversation, how it went about. And obviously Masaki can clearly tell that he's a Shimigami, and then Ishin is thinking to himself like, oh, he says out loud that, oh, a Quincy, he's never met one before, and because Shimigami Quincy's are enemies and whatnot, so he's saying, yeah, he's never met a Quincy before, so it's pretty nice to finally see one. So they just begin laughing off, and then now we're going to a new panel. So now Aizen, Gin and Tozen are back in their lair, wherever that may be, probably inside the Soul Society again. And Tozen looks very frustrated to the point was that he said like, oh, he's very angry, like it blew itself up. He's saying like the hollow blew itself up. It's also, you kind of get the impression that it didn't have to blow itself up, but it did. It blew itself up. So Tozen's very, very frustrated about that. What else happened? Then Aizen basically calms Tozen down, saying that no, it's not a total failed experiment, and Tozen saying that, you know, the fact that it didn't choose to basically almost take a new host, but like someone for holification, is like basically means it was at its final stage of development, which means it was a total failure. And then Aizen was like, no, it's not a total failure, because the fact of the matter is it went for somebody the complete opposite. Just because something doesn't you know, do exactly as planned, because, you know, Masaki and Ishin being there weren't as planned, just because something doesn't go exactly as planned, that means the experiment was surpassing its expectations. So Aizen just simply says, like, let's just sit on the back fence and let's see what happens next. Alright. What then happens next is we're back into the Soul Society with you know, Ishin, you know, all fully healed and whatnot, basically in front of the other captains of the Gote 13 and head captain Yamamoto Genryusa himself, basically saying that, you know, although you broke the rules, we'll allow it this once, because, you know, basically your actions, although unpermitted, saved a lot of lives and saved a lot of destruction in the world to live in, so pass, it's okay. And then, like, he was like very thankful about that. And then in the back of his mind, he's starting to think about Masaki, like how the fact that she told him she was a Quincy, that, you know, that was very brave of her, very like noble, very admirable. And you're just wondering, like, oh, basically what's she up to, like, you know, will he ever get to see her again and whatnot. Maybe he should go back to the world living for a chance to encounter her, just to thank her properly. Now panel changes, like the scene changes again. We see Masaki is in high school. Uniform looks very similar to the one Ichigo is wearing. Not Ichigo, like, you know, Orihime was wearing, because it looks like it's the same high school, just years back. So Masaki's talking with her girls, saying that, you know, how, just having a conversation about how she's in the Ishida household, how basically her friends like, you know, Ryuken, that her friends like Ryuken, and that, you know, basically, quote unquote, says that, you know, they would love to be in the same house as Ryuken, because Ryuken makes them horny. Hey. Hey. And so, yeah, Masaki goes to say, like, hey, that was dirty, to her friends. And then basically, like, Masaki, like, gets a nudge, like, seems like an accidental nudge, and then her friends are like to her, like, oh, is Masaki, you okay, Masaki? And then what we see Kisuke Urahara, like, with his turning towards Masaki, the fact that, and he looks surprised, like, simply with his hat down, simply for the fact that she can see him. I don't think, actually I'll get into that later. So then, that's the end of the chapter. So, let's get into this. Alright. Bleach chapter 533, Everything But the Rain, opening 6, Shimigami X review time. Okay, I think this chapter was a very good chapter for quite a few reasons. Firstly, what I did like to see is that the hollow, which I thought was a bit weird, the hollow blew itself up. The fact that it blew itself up, in my opinion, you know, means quite a lot. It means more than, you know, the thing was defeated, so it decided to blow itself up, because later on, Tozen states that the thing blew itself up. So almost like it didn't have to do that. It was like almost like a desperate move. And it's saying that the fact that it didn't choose them didn't choose the Quincy for holification, it just blew itself up. So what does that mean? Like, basically take over a new host, you know, take over a new host and basically holify them itself within that person. So Tozen was thinking that's in the final stages of development, which was like, no, Aizen's correct in saying that no, it's surpassing its expectations. So I thought that was quite interesting, that that this holification, this hollow experiment, is able to basically pass on its being into others. But in my opinion, I think it did pass on its being, but only part of it after it blew up. So part of its Reiatsu resides within inside Masaki, which is why I believe Ichigo's hollow transformation, the one that defeated Team Ukiura, was, you know, looks so similar to Ichigo's holification. What else I also like about the chapter is it was nice to see, like, you know, Yamamoto Genryusa again after, you know, he got cut down in half by Jua Bark. That was nice to see as well. And it's what else I like, it shows for character development and, you know, the relationship between characters. For example, you know, Masaki and Ishin, we obviously know that they have Ichigo, Kari and Yuzu. So, but when I'm saying like it's good for character relationship development, what I'm talking about is in terms of like how he starts to think, how he's thinking about Misaki when he's in the Soul Society, and his mindset at the time. It's not that, oh, he's infatuated with her straight away. It's like somewhat realistic. He just wants to thank her, and he's just generally wondering what she's up to right now. And the same with Misaki in her mindset. It's like good to see. What else I did like as well is to see that Tozen didn't seem to be completely brainwashed by Aizen. What it seemed like to me is that, you know, he was fully aware of what he was doing. He was fully into, you know, the holification experiments and whatnot. Like, he was part of this throughout and throughout. So where some people said that, oh yeah, maybe Aizen brainwashed him, we can see by the, you know, these latest few chapters that no, that's not the case. It looks like, you know, Tozen was a full-on traitor. The only one who wasn't a full-on traitor was you know, Gin Ichimaru. Shout out, some respect to Gin. What else I also liked about the chapter? I love the fact the Hollow blew itself up. That was epic. Kisuke Urahara Kisuke, the one who, the smartest mind in the, you know, the entire Bleach universe that we've seen so far. Misaki has seen him. He's seen Misaki. What does this mean? How does this lead? And, you know, where's this going to go to? That's what I'm wondering now. But my opinions about it is that, you know, they've never met before. I don't think Kisuke has been stalking Misaki. I highly doubt that's the case. I think that it's just a rare coincidence that they bumped into each other, and then he's surprised at the fact that she can see him. And because of that, they may have, you know, further conversations, and, you know, Kisuke will do some research depending on different situations and whatnot. But it does make me wonder that if that is the case, and, you know, they do end up having a full-on conversation, is that why is it that Kisuke never mentioned anything about his mother to anything about Misaki to Ichigo? You know, knowing that that's, you know, her son. Okay, fair enough, he may not have knew that's her son. There's nothing that directly indicates that, because at this matter of time she's not pregnant with Ichigo. So it just does make me wonder, like, you know, where this is heading, because we've been in this, you know, flashback for, you know, quite some time now, for 6 chapters now. Everything But the Rain opening 6. I do think that this Everything But the Rain is going to continue for about like another 3-4 chapters. So I can easily see it going up to 10. But it is good, like, this entire segment of this arc, simply because it is basically explaining Ichigo's roots, and, you know, just like what Oetsu Nimaya told Ichigo to go and do, so that he can go and awaken Tensei Zangetsu again, get his soul powers back. But I'm interested to find out, as in, where would this lead Ichigo in terms of new powers? Will he develop his Quincy powers more, and so eventually start having arrows like how his mother does, Shuhabaka and the other Star Knights? Will he develop a final holy form? I believe he will, because the fact that his mother was a pure-blooded Quincy, like that, one of the last of the pure-blooded Quincy, it just makes sense that he would be able to use all of the techniques. Yeah, my combat pass, guys. Yeah, it just makes sense that he'd be able to use all of the techniques, and why he's able to pick up Blood Venet so easily, like it was second nature. Because the fact that he picked up Bankai so easily, and it was like it was second nature, because he comes from, you know, noble blood in terms of the Soul Society, and he comes from noble blood in terms of Quincy's. So although he's, you know, a hybrid between the two, he's still of noble blood. He's a noble blood hybrid as such. So yeah, that's really my thoughts about the chapter, guys. It felt like a really short chapter this week. I'm not sure why. Maybe because there was a lot of action and, you know, not much dialogue. But like I've always said, it's a great chapter nonetheless, and the chapter doesn't always need to have action to be a great chapter, if you understand what I mean. But anyways, guys, that's my thoughts about it. Yeah, you know, hit me up in the comment section below. Let me know if I missed anything. Yeah, as always, people, comment, rate, subscribe for more Bleach chapter reviews just like this one. Yeah, we're going to be taking a short intermission. So basically, because I missed last week's chapter, we're going to dive straight into the last week's chapter after this. So I'm going to leave a little break. So this is your chance for you to know, grab a quick bite to eat, grab a drink, anything, you know. But anyways, this is me, Shin Megami X. See y'all later. Hello everybody and welcome to Bleach chapter 532, hosted by none other than me, Shin Megami X. I hope you lot have enjoyed your short intermission break, had a quick bite to eat, had something to drink, because we're going to get straight into this chapter, okay guys? Alright. The way this chapter starts out is we see the backslash from Aizen from the previous chapter, and that slash has wounded him quite deep, and then the panel changes to go on to explain that how this cloak that he's wearing masks his Reiatsu, which a lot of my subscribers and a lot of people called from the last chapter in previous comments and whatnot. So yep, shout out to you lot, got that one right. Yep, So moving on, this next part I don't really see very relevant towards chapter at all anyway, but I'm going to describe it to you guys anyway. Basically, they're having Tozen and Aizen are having like a short conversation or a short little dispute about what they should name this hollow. That because its exterior is black, they're saying that basically the fact that it was more or less defeated by a captain in the Shikai is a failed experiment anyway. And it said like, oh yeah, Aizen gives it a name, but Tozen says to him like, no, we should call it white, because although its exterior is black, it's made from the pure spirit of a Shinigami. Like its basis is from a Shinigami. That's the general core of it. It was made from the soul of a Shinigami. So for that one reason, he wants to call it white. So to me, that doesn't really mean anything. It's not really that important. So, but anyways, moving into the chapter now. Ishin continues to battle against this hollow. He's wounded it. He's also stating the fact that this wound is very deep. He can't stabilize his Reiatsu, and because of that, he's unable to use his Bankai, for the simple reason that his Bankai has a big toll on his body, which Aizen did explain just before that. That he won't be able to use his Bankai now because his Bankai takes a big toll on his body with that slash that he gave him. So which is very similar to Ichigo's Bankai, but we'll get into that after I do the summary of the chapter. So moving on to the chapter now. He's battling against Hollow. He manages to cut off one of his arms. And he still mentions that this Hollow still is very strong. The fact that it's being able to fight with one arm still, and Ishin releases like a slash that looks like fire, or it could just look like Reiatsu. But it's pretty hard to tell from it being in black and white. I'm sure if this was animated, I would be able to tell you exactly what it is. But considering the release command was called Burn and Getsu, you can assume that's a fire type Zanpakuto. So I'm gonna go with that. It's probably like a fire version of Getsu Katencho that he released. Okay, next what happens is that we see Masaki appear, and then Tozen is like, no, sorry, Aizen says like, oh, it's a Quincy, like, he's surprised, this isn't what he planned. So then Tozen's like, okay, I'm gonna go to eliminate her, but then Aizen stops him. It's like, no, let's see what happens first, because Masaki being a pure-blooded Quincy, he just wants to see the outcome of what will happen. It's great for his experiment. So what we then see is that Masaki's out here fighting, and Ishin is like obviously wondering who is this girl. So then the Hollow then charges at her, ready to attack her, because the Hollow is obviously going for the weaker victim out here. Naturally, in the survival of the fittest, because the Hollow relies basically on instincts, so it's obviously going for a survival of the fittest kind of thing, where it's going to attack Masaki, which is obviously weaker than Ishin, which is obviously wounded him in battle. Prior to that, we also seen Ishin jump back, after the Hollow goes to slash Ishin, he jumps on his black bladed arm, and then we also see that it did cut him. So this Hollow is doing like some quite significant damage to Ishin. So moving on back to Masaki now. Masaki gets her like those Quincy arrows. For the life of him, I can't remember the name, and she like fires them at the Hollow. She misses, so she does like a flurry attack of these arrows, but this Hollow's dodging them because this Hollow's like extremely fast, more powerful than normal Hollows, naturally, being basically the first mock, or no, sorry, I believe this will be the second mock Aranka, because this is after the Term at the Pendulum arc, so the second experiment of mock Arankas. Okay, so although the Hollow's missing and whatnot, she decides to go for broke here and basically says like, okay, come and get me. So she makes the Hollow attack her. It looks like it stabs her and also bites her on the shoulder at the same time. She then quite cleverly wraps her arm around the Hollow's head, kind of like giving it like a hug / headlock, gets like a miniature like Quincy arrow and fires straight through her head at point blank range. Nice one, KO Masaki. Well done, Masaki wounds. Okay, and that was essentially the chapter, guys. Okay, now to get into the review side of things. I think this chapter was done brilliantly, in my opinion. As you all know, I'm a man of action. I like to see action in a chapter, and this chapter had that in abundance. I do also like dialogue. Like, a chapter doesn't have to be... A chapter isn't good only because of action. A chapter can be great without any action, just for story development purposes. But okay, let's get into why this chapter was good. For starters, I think it was good to see, you know, how Aizen got his equipment and stuff from Kisuke Urahara, and how Kisuke, you know, was a big influence to Aizen and helped his plans out a lot in terms of like his research and development, to show, like, you know, how advanced his mindset is in terms of the rest of the members of the Gote 13 and all the captains, etc. in the Bleach universe. For in fact, he's one of the smartest characters, and probably one of, if not the only character other than Mayuri Kurotsuchi, who is actually smarter than Aizen is. So it was nice to see that as well. It was also nice to see that Kaname Tozen has a valid input into the plans of Aizen. So, like, for example, I know it's very insignificant as far as naming the Hollow, but it shows that Aizen does take on board, you know, Gin and Tozen's views in terms of whatever it is that he does. Alright. What else I also think that it was nice to see you know, Ishin battle it out, and to also notice the fact that Ishin's Bankai is very similar to Ichigo's Bankai. So, you know, like when Ichigo went Tensa Zangetsu for the very first time, and, you know, Byakuya stated to him that, you know, no, sorry, it was his Hollow that stated to him that his own Bankai is crushing his bones. He's being crushed by his own Reiatsu. So that was pretty cool to see that their Bankai is very similar. As you all knew that anyway, because Ishin has released the Getsu Gatencha in the past. So it's nice to also see that their Bankai is very similar. Just the very slight difference of one being called Engetsu, one's called Zangetsu. One has a release command called Burn, and we never did quite know the release command to Ichigo Zanpakuto. But either way, hey. What else I also think it was nice to see Misaki, you know, in action, to see that she's not like just this helpless character, like, for example, you know, a Sakura from Bleach, from Naruto, or, you know, the Orihime in the series where, okay, Orihime can fend for herself, but, you know, more of the time she has to be saved. Like, for example, the whole thing with Heiko Mundo, that, you know, she's willing to take something head on, something as powerful as this, that had the ability to take out a Soul Reaper captain, but obviously didn't. But so it was nice to see that. It was nice to see that, you know, she didn't punk out as such, you know. She wasn't like just missing the things, so like, oh crap, what am I going to do now? You know, she essentially took it on the chin. She manned up and took it. Hollow bitter, okay, your mind sucker, pow! Straight through this thing's head. So I think that's pretty cool to see. So I think this chapter was great for character development. So when I say character development, I mean like in terms of like more depth into Ishin's character, more depth into Masaki's character, and more depth into the plans of Aizen, Kaname, and Gin. So it was great for those reasons. I wouldn't say it was great for story development, because I can't really classify a flashback as story development, because it's like me talking to you and telling a story. We're not actually progressing anywhere. All I'm doing is telling you a story. It's telling you the events of the past, so it can't really be called progression if I'm telling you the events of the past. You kind of see where I'm coming from. So yeah, I think the chapter was great for that reason. So in overall, in my opinion, I give the chapter a good solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, I think an 8 out of 10 was sufficing. I think the artwork was pretty solid in this chapter, so that the action scenes were pretty clear to see, like how, for example, the Hollow swung, Ishin jumped on the bladed arm of the Hollow. Yeah, so what else do I think about this chapter? Yeah, I think it was a good chapter. And you know what, it was also, this also might be a good indication of how Ichigo has his Hollow powers. For example, Masaki being bitten on the shoulder by the Hollow, you know, and then taking out its Reiatsu, or parts of its Reiatsu, may pour into the being of Masaki, which then eventually gets passed down to Ichigo, you know, Ichigo being her son and everything, which would very much explain why the bladed arm looks very much, the bladed arm of this Black Hollow, called Whitey, whatever, looks very much like the blade of Ichigo's new Zangetsu, the Zangetsu post Fullbring arc. You know what I'm talking about, the new one with the spiked edge. Yeah, so the blade arm looks very much like that, and it's also, it would more or less clarify why the Hollow that we see that took out Ukiura, my favorite Espada, but yeah, took out Ukiura, had the horns that were very similar to it. Why Ichigo's Hollow form in general was very similar to this Hollow that Masaki just took out. I'm calling it, this Hollow's dead. Come on, who survives a shot to the head? Obviously not the Noitera, you could say the Noitera, but that didn't go through his head, it went through his head, not in between his head, the brains and all that business. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the chapter today, guys. As always, people, comment, rate, subscribe for more Bleach chapter reviews, for more content in general. You know, follow my Twitter fan page, holler at me, help me up in the inbox, let me know what you think. Anyways, guys, sorry for having this review out late as always, but you know, I'm pretty sure you guys have gathered from, you know, me explaining my reasons before. But anyways, guys, this is me, Shimigami X. I'm signing out as always, people. Take care. And peace.